What is the most damage you've ever done with a typo? GNTR very close on the keyboard, and for this reason regards is not my favorite email closing. Someone at work called Amaze Moran a moron by mistake. Is that because you can't spell? I used to work for a museum booking group visits and educational programs for tour companies and schools. Was working on a reservation and they had only told me how many students were in the group. But I also needed the number of adults. So, we'll also need to know approximately how many sluts will be visiting from your school. But if you meant adults, it's going to be around 8 or 10. It's a good thing they had a sense of humor. Could have been real bad. Also 8 or 10 sluts as well. I asked my mum about visiting and she replied, no you can't. Plot twist. It wasn't a typo and your mom is just a savage. What's wrong with this response is the missing comma. You can't. Face rolling on the floor laughing. Face rolling on the floor laughing. Submitting forms for a job. You've been involved with illegal distribution of controlled substances? Because you check no on all the other questions about criminal behavior. At least. Pretty good of the guy to call you back and confirm. Another guy might have just assumed you meant to check that box and throw your application away. I'm pretty fastidious about the law. Aside from that, a couple years ago my grandpa had surgery for pancreatic cancer. What my mom meant to text me is the surgeons will give an update soon, which instead somehow came out as the surgeons will give up soon. I remember a reply from several years ago that was kind of similar to this. A couple was trying to meet at the hospital because a family member was having a baby. The guy was running late because of traffic or whatever. This is the funniest one to me. I mean, that is the last thing you'd want to hear, lol. Asked a vendor if they can ship out an urgent order the same day. Except P turned into a T. Well, I try to do a quality job. But okay. Right, double quotation mark. You can tell it's 1:30 am and I should go to bed cause I just said, urgent. Out loud, convinced it was what you meant and very confused edit. After posting I just realized you said P to T and not T to P. Time for bed. My first finance job had to do with managing corporate cash. I was moving funds from one account to another and accidentally hit an extra zero. I ended up moving 0 millimeters instead of mm. Luckily it was between internal accounts, so it was easily reversible. But I didn't know that at the time. I shat my pants and my boss let me panic for 30 seconds before fixing it. I had a coworker wire 50 millimeters from our bank account to another bank account belonging to another division instead of 5 millimeters once. Everyone here, after promptly contacting the other party to have them return the extra BC, we're all cool like that. Just kind of laughed it off. It's considered somewhat of a rite of passage in this job to frick up a wire transfer like that at some point. But I think my coworker is the current record holder for amount. Story checks out. Uses mm for millions. I don't get why m means thousands though. Makes reading a business case weird. I once fired off an email to Butch, the executive officer, same grade as me, so using first names. That started out with, bitch. No damage done, but kind of funny. I bet someone whose name is one letter away from a swear is used to it by adulthood. A person who ends up in email chains involving me is called Ansu. I'm never quite sure if it is a typo, autocorrect or plausible deniability at play when the inevitable typo happens once every few months. I wouldn't say damage to other people but more myself. And I meant to say I absolutely will not, but I forgot the not. Haha. What kind of idiot intentionally says yes to this? I understand yours was a typo, but that's a dumb as hell question for an interview. Unintentional honesty. That hurts. My father-in-law had just died. I text my other half saying, how's your dad going? Instead of how's your day going? He was not impressed. Why the hell did I laugh so hard? Face with tears of joy. Of course. It went out to a group of managers who reported to my boss. We were going to have really limited office coverage for the holidays, so one of their usual processes was going to be delayed, and I was asked to send the official email about how we were going to do business during the couple of days after Christmas. Fortunately, they were great people and we all laughed. Not a typo but along these lines. I went out to assess a very elderly and frail gent for equipment, suitable chair, walking aids. After a while his wife asked me to go into the bedroom. She pulled back the covers on their bed, looked at me and said my husband is inconfident in bed. Still not 100% sure if she meant incontinence, but given their marriage of 60+ years, That was what I went with. LOL. I had a dorm email me in college that they were going to be testing the fire alarms and that they were sorry for the incontinence. I left before they blared the brown note. My dog is sick. Do you think it will get better? I hope it does. Instead of oh it was an I. What does I hype it does mean? What is the most damage you've ever done with a typo? That has to be the worst typo of 2021. Years ago I took down the entire web infrastructure of a large, millions of daily users, company with a single additional, in a line of PHP code. Does that count? I got my entire company IP banned from a genome database service by leaving a single semicolon out of a script I wrote which was intended to automate requests. In retrospect I should have tested it better before setting it to run and walking away from my desk for an hour while my PC tried to download their entire human genome dataset a few times over. As a developer myself, I was scrolling through specifically looking for someone who made a typo in their code and fricked their company somehow. LOL. One time I just typed as in response to a guy instead of as in, that makes sense, and he got mad. LMAO. It was a rare typo too because S and H aren't even next to each other on a keyboard. Text chats, emails and other written forms of communication are prone to errors and misinterpretation. No one with any kind of sense should get mad unless there is no other way to take something. At work, the people typing up vendor listings for a convention listed the food vendors' lunch offerings. I was among the proofreaders. None of us caught the words fried children. Should have been fried chicken. So, not my typo. You know, those chickens had families. Man. Tried to ask, are you working with a plumber today? Instead I typed, are you working with a plumboner today? Right double quotation mark. If it turned purple, see a doctor. I once sent a mass email to senior VPs and C-level execs that I was going to shut down the server cluster over the weekend. A half hour later, a guy stops me in the hallway and tells me that I sent an email to all these big shots that I was going to shoot down the server cluster. LOL. I also sent a message where I was asked to look at a problem and sent a message to a bunch of managers and VPs that I would investigate things except that it said that I would investigate thongs. LOL. Whoever put the U, I, and O keys next to each other on a QWERTY keyboard. Well played. This is the best practical joke ever devised. Just this week I asked one of the C-suits if he needed a docking station at home. I'm so glad he laughed. I type thanks at the end of emails and I sometimes spell it wrong like thanks and it autocorrects. It started autocorrecting to thankless for some reason and a few emails made it out where it looked like I was signing off by saying I was under appreciated. I texted my mom I am harm instead of I am home one night and she thought I'd gotten harmed. I love the idea of someone I know being in trouble and just sending the phrase I am harm. If the M were a D you would have had a way more awkward situation on your hands. Several years ago, I asked my mom if we could go to butt shows that weekend. I meant buy shoes. No joke. It changed both words to form the most unfortunate sentence ever. I hate my fat thumbs. LOL. Well, did she say yes? Once when I was about 14-15 I was working for an art gallery and the owner had me write a happy birthday email to her friend. In hindsight, that's pretty weird. But anyway, I accidentally wrote happy birthday dead Christina instead of dear. And when Christina responded, it was clear that she found the typo humorous. My boss, however, did not, and she flipped out on me and made me cry over it. She then had me write an apology email explaining things like who I was, how old I was, and where I went to school. That was over a decade ago, and looking back, everything about that was super inappropriate. I was very happy to stop working there. So the boss's solution to her friend thinking she made a typo in a birthday message was to have you explain to her friend that she couldn't even bother writing the message herself? That was a DCK move on the boss part. When is my hair appointment? But it said where is my child cabinet? How TF? Where did the maid put my damn child cabinet? Did you order it from Wafer? Not knowing German. This is my favorite. Also I hate that I can't have German and English autocorrect turned on at the same time. Gluten moaning. Armadillo. Instead of armadillo. Sounds like a legit sex toy though. Pokemon are getting weird. Man. I worked in the architecture industry for many years. One of the aspects of the job when we were designing a new building in a community, was to present our plans to the public in a place like a community center or a school gym, and they would be able to voice their concerns. The presentation materials would usually take the form of panels printed on foam cardboard and placed around the space. These presentations are called public consultations. In one instance, we had printed about 30 boards with the title X Project Public Consultation at the top. Luckily the mistake was caught before they placed all the boards, and they were quickly reprinted, which cost a lot of money. If it had been any other letter we would have let it slide. It took me way too long to realize that pubic and public were different words. I was always so confused as to why it was called pubic hair, because that's pretty much the least public place it could be. I started writing reports for my company a couple years ago. We use a template or previous report from the same client for new reports. One section we almost always include is called public information. As you can guess, it was misspelled pubic information in the table of contents. This was in dozens of reports over a few years. Always wonder if any clients noticed it. None ever pointed it out, I assume, as it wasn't corrected until I saw it. Obligatory, not me. But my colleague sent an email to C-level exec asking him to look at the screenshot. He was really in the shoot the next day. I once sent a mass email in big red font asking for anal reports by the end of the week. Had a fairly shooty response. A friend of mine once showed me a story they were working on.